people who have gotten their visa approvals, now they're gonna enter United States. But before they enter United States, there's gonna be big blocker, which is gonna be the port of entry CBP/interview.
They're gonna cross-check what you told the visa officer.
Because they found something and they could deny my entry and I have to go back. Is that at all possible?
Yeah, absolutely. That visa is not a guarantee that you can enter the US.
Is it okay if we do arrive like 15-20 days early? What kind of information do CBP officer have? This has happened with multiple of my audience, but it's not the first time they're going. But either they ask them to check social media or even sometimes like emails and things on their phone. Is this true and what are they trying to get at? Before we dive into all the strategies and stories that we're going to discuss in this podcast, let me ask you this. Do you have a clear job hunting strategy to get an internship or a full-time job? Most people don't, and it's costing them opportunities. I've helped over 1,100 students with their strategies through my ultimate job hunting course.
And trust me, I'm not even kidding. I could see so many recruiters viewing my profile.
And it's been the best investment I've ever made.
The content is incredibly practical, filled with tips and strategies that make you stand out to recruiters.
It was one of the best courses that I have done till date.
This course covers everything that you need to stand out. You will get ultimate resume course, you will get ultimate LinkedIn course, networking strategy, access to 1,100 plus job seekers for support, and personal support from me through WhatsApp group. I will walk you through every single step that you need with real examples and the tools that will give you an edge. I don't want you to miss any other opportunity to land your next job or an internship. So check the link in the description. And now I will let you enjoy the podcast. Thank you, Yvette, for doing this. And I am excited. We are not talking about F1 visa, although we will be talking slightly a little bit. It is very relevant to the F1 visa. But excited to have you back. This is like our episode 5 and hope to do more of these. But today we are going to talk about CBP and what happens at the port of entry and all of that. Before we do that, let's do a quick intro. Who are you if people have not watched our old videos?
Great. My name is Yvette Bunsell. I was a former consular officer. I worked in India and for the federal government for 11 years. And after I transitioned, I started Yudi, a company with other former consular officers, some of which have trained CBP officers. We all have lots of experience, over 200,000 visas adjudicated among us. So we help with visa interview preparation. If you're nervous about your visa interview, we help guide you so you get some good and ethical answers.
Amazing. I'm excited. And I know we've done multiple videos to talk about different topics on F1 visa. And also it always amazes me that how you were behind the window who have approved, denied, or educated the visas, and now CBP, which is also very interesting, especially current time where different government, different rules, etc. But let's start. I have a bunch of questions. People who have gotten their visa approvals, now they're going to enter United States. But before they enter United States, there's going to be big blocker. They have to still pass that blocker, which is going to be the port of entry CBP/interview. So what is CBP? Like why are people talking so much about it? Like what do they do?
Their job, they work under the Department of Homeland Security, and their job is to ensure that the visa adjudication is appropriate and that you are not an intending immigrant. They are the final check to get into the United States. So they're going to cross-check what you told the visa officer, and they're going to ensure that you are there. They could be standing as you get your luggage to make sure that your luggage is of appropriate size for what you're intending to do in the US. They could be checking some more information behind the scenes based on your picture and fingerprints, and they're going to be asking you questions. So expect a mini interview before you enter the country. And yes, their whole job is to ensure that you're in the United States doing what you said that you were going to do, and that you're going to use your visa appropriately, and that you don't intend on overstaying or using your visa not appropriately.
Yes. Okay. And so is it at all possible that I thought I've gotten my F1 visa approved, which means I'm already going to be in United States. So is it possible that they could deny at the port of entry that, hey, because they found something and they could deny my entry and I have to go back? Is that at all possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Say you're a single male and you said that you were going to visit a friend for 2 weeks, but then you have multiple huge bags, and a CBP officer, even before you go for the interview, sees that and thinks that's quite questionable. They could pull you into secondary for that. I've seen that happen. Or if you go to the window and you're an F1 student and you can't answer basic questions about where you're going to stay, it doesn't line up with the university that you're staying at. So that may raise some red flags, and that may get you deported. So absolutely, it's a final check to make sure that everything is as you said it was going to be. And if you're not prepared, you can absolutely get turned around by CBP. That visa is not a guarantee that you can enter the US.
Okay. And you said secondary check. Like I've heard this as well. Like, what is that?
It's where CBP pulls you aside and asks you one-on-one questions in a separate room in a more intense fashion that they can, right at that window in which you're entering the United States. They want more time with you, so they will pull you, and it will be a secondary questioning, a secondary inspection.
Okay. I know we're gonna reveal like some of the common questions people should expect, especially for F1 visa student. But one of the common question is port of entry or different port of entry. Let's say I'm planning to go to Purdue University for my master's, which is maybe the entry should be Chicago, but instead of that, I'm going to Dallas to meet my cousins or my friend, or maybe Seattle or Bay Area. How is that normal? What kind of questioning should I expect?
You are totally allowed to go into a different port of entry than where your university is. It's common for people to want to do some tourism or visit family prior to them starting their program. Or if you're not an F1 student, prior to you starting work. Just be prepared that the officer is going to ask you what your address is, what your intention in the US is. And if you're saying, I'm going to be in Indiana, but I'm visiting my family in Dallas, they're also going to want to know the information of your family that is in Dallas. So if you're comfortable talking about that, if you're comfortable talking about visiting a friend, a family member, and then explaining your onward plan, it should not be an issue. If you feel like you're going to be nervous or you don't want to talk about your family members, then going into a different point of entry and making yourself more nervous or talking about family members that you may not want to talk about may not be the course of action for you, but it's totally normal and common for you to go
Mm,
and want to do some tourism or visiting prior to your program.
got it. Before I ask you other questions, I forgot in the beginning to ask about, let's say, people who may not have gotten their F1 visa approved or need and help. They may have gotten F1 visa rejection, or they might need more help with CBP. So how can you help them?
So you can go visit udetivisa.com, and we have former consular officers that help you prepare for your visa interview. We can let you know the possible reasons for rejection, some strategies, and some ways you can address the consular officer and CBP, what documents to carry, and how to best approach your visa interview strategically. We help you prepare for your visa interview, and denials are really high right now. So that's why we're offering this service. And we're different than other consultants who may not have been behind the window, because we know what consular officers are looking for, and we only give you trusted advice.
So it's not just rejection, but also first time preparation as well.
Ideally, you want to be prepared the first time, but yes, we also help you overcome rejections.
And do they get discount because they're my audience?
Yeah. Yes. Use the code UDJ for a special discount. Use that promo code when you check out, and we'll be sure to give you
Nice.
a discount.
Cool. We'll also put this in the description if people want to check out. Okay. Moving on to CBP officers. So let's say uh, they arrive 15 days early before their actual start day of the program. How early can they do? And is it okay if we do arrive like 15, 20 days early?
Absolutely. 15, 20 days is very common. You need to have time to get situated, buy your books, make sure you're able to tell the consular officer what you're going to do with the 15, 20 days. Do you have orientation? Don't get nervous and say, yes, I'm here 15 days early. Tell them why. You need to get settled. You need to acclimate yourself to US culture. You need to figure out your transportation, how things work, how to buy things, where things are. That's normal. You are able to enter the US 30 days prior to that start date on your I-20. So 15
Hmm.
days, completely normal and expected.
Hey, before we move on to the next part of the video, I want to quickly talk about our newsletter community, which you can be part of absolutely free. We are now going strong and we have more than 40,000 people in our newsletter community. So imagine 40,000 people are receiving my newsletter every single week, twice a week, where I break down all of the stories that we did and make it a valuable resource for you. So if you're someone who doesn't have time to watch this and you just want to get an email with all of the resources into an email, that is the place to be. I'll put the link in the description. I'll give you some example. This is the one for Tanvi, where how she got 2 co-ops and she paid off her entire master's fees. This is an example of Maya, where she got 3 co-ops and she paid off her fees plus a little bit of savings. Here is an example of Sahil, who got his green card in 3 years. Here is an example where we shared bunch of resources on job hunting. So I promise this is going to be valuable resource for you, and it doesn't cost you anything. If you want to be part of our newsletter community, link will be in the description, or you can go to link.yudijagani.com/newsletter. This is the URL. And now I'll let you enjoy the video. What about, I think you mentioned this, to at least know the address that you're going to be. So does that mean I have to have my apartments booked, or at least if I don't, because my plan is to arrive early so I can look at the apartments and then book the apartments. So how do I navigate that situation?
So it's normal to have both sets of accommodations or paths for students. So some students may be very prepared, they have dorm rooms. Some students may want to look at apartments, but you need to be confident in answering the consular officer, the CBP officer. And you need to tell the CBP officer, I want to look at apartments. Here's my short term plan. Because you're not just entering the United States with no short term plan, right? You're going to stay at a hotel, you're going to stay at an Airbnb, a hostel, at a friend's house until you look at apartments. But have printouts of apartments ready. Know exactly where you're going to look. If you have showings scheduled, make sure you are able to explain that. If you know on what website you're going to use to get that apartment, then let them know. Know what's appropriate for your visa class. If you're a bachelor's degree student, generally you have to spend the first 2 years on campus. If there is some sort of waiver for that, make sure you're communicating that you have received a waiver for whatever reason. Otherwise, it's not going to look like you're telling the truth. For master's degree students, it's a little bit more common for them to live off campus. So understanding that all those questions and all those speculations from the CBP officer is going to come to into play there.
And that tells me that they have already certain information about you, which they are trying to validate. So is it possible that they have the information that visa counselor officer, when they were doing the interview, put those notes, etc.? These information also, what kind of information do CBP officer have?
They have a lot of different types of information, but they certainly have information that you have told the consular officer. So if you've told the consular officer you're staying on a dorm, and then you're entering the US and you're saying that you're going to look for apartments, that discrepancy may land you into secondary. Things can get inspected. Your phone can get inspected by CBP officers. I know we hear that on the internet a lot. And so they look through your phone and it doesn't look like you're searching for apartments, but rather searching for jobs or something else, then you will probably get deported. So, yes, to answer your question, they do have the information that you have provided to visa officers. And they also have a good idea of what is normal and expected versus not. So, if you're doing something abnormal, then there you may get additional questioning for doing that. Like I said, if you're, for example, a bachelor degree student and going to a 4-year university and you're going off campus, that might be slightly abnormal, as first year students generally stay on campus. So you need to be able to answer those questions to the satisfaction of the CBP officer.
And I've also noticed again, this has happened with multiple of my audience, but this is not the first time they're going. But either they ask them to check social media, or even sometimes like emails and things on their phone. Is this true? And what are they trying to get at? Like, what are the things that people should prepare if they're planning to go for the first time?
Right. So traditionally, it was to see if you have another job lined up, if you're telling the truth about what school you're going to. Maybe they're looking for emails that indicate that you do have admission to that university. But nowadays, with social media checks, it could be more extensive than that. They could be looking for activism or
Mm.
even other politically charged posts, as we're hearing. We don't know the extent of that on the outside. So they could be looking for a wide variety of things these days. So those are some of the things.
Okay. And do they do do we have right as a student to say no, I don't want to show my social media or by phone or by email?
You could, if you want to be turned around and sent back to your home country. If you have social media, make sure that it's secure. I don't know the capacity of getting into an unsecure social media website, but certainly make your posts private, make your likes private, make all your social media private. If that's not something that you're comfortable with the CBP officer looking at, and if you have text messages or emails that you don't want the CBP officer looking at, then sure, delete it. Don't have that phone on you. Don't have that computer on you. However, you hopefully have nothing to hide and are able to just let them freely look through your stuff.
Right.
And it shouldn't be a problem. So, but be prepared to allow them to do that. And
Mm.
if you have social media, maybe that you don't want, then go ahead and delete it. I don't think that they have the capability of salvaging
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ideally, you're just a genuine student wanting
right,
to do your.
exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Moving last two questions, and these are probably the most important one. What are the documents that students should have handy, at least in their carry-ons or backpacks, and what kind of documents CBP officers could expect from students?
Right. So you definitely want your passport, right? Can't get anywhere without that. Your visa, your SEVIS receipt is very important. Multiple copies of your I-20 in every location, because you're not going to get in with that I-20. This is for students. If you have other visa classes, just to kind of shout out to the H-1Bs, your I-797 or your LCA, and all those important documents, if you're a non-student. Then have for students your sponsorship letter, your acceptance letter, your financial documents, not in your check in luggage, in your hand luggage, properly labeled. The name, pronunciation of your school. Make sure you can pronounce your school. You don't want to throw out any red flags. The address where you're staying, or the plan for the short term place, and what you plan to do for a place to stay. Information on how you're going to get around, who's picking you up, family members in the United States. If you can't remember them, but you know that you have a lot of family members in the US or in the city that you're traveling in, where do they stay? What do they do? You don't want to say, I'm going to go visit my uncle and not know what they do. If you need to have a document, writing it down, go ahead and do that. If you're visiting somebody close, that's important information. So all of that is important to have just in case. If you have a class syllabus, go ahead and print your class syllabus out. Have information about the duration of your program. So if your I-20 says that it's only a 1-year program, but for example, it's a pathway and it's really a 4-year program, having the documentation of how long that program is, ensuring that you communicate with the visa officer the correct duration of the program. Your DS-160 has the correct duration of the program, and you're communicating to CBP the correct duration of that program, the structure of your program. Just treat it as a mini interview and have all that ready to go, because you never know. The more forthcoming, the more open, the more information you can say, hey, here is my document, the less of a chance you're going to get hassled into a secondary or a further inspection. So
Got it. And finally, what are the questions that students should expect? These are some common questions that they will be asked most likely.
yeah, the first one probably, what's your purpose for entering the the country? You don't want to, just like a visa interview, you don't want to just say school. You want to say, I'm going to Purdue University. It's located in this city. I'm planning on staying at the dorms my first year. I'm a computer science major. A little bit more. Give a complete answer. Be confident. Do you know anybody in the United States? So just let them know who you know in the United States. How long is your program? Um, and the very basic questions of entering into the United States. And if you are a return F1 student, say you did your bachelor's and now you're coming for a master's degree, or you did your master's degree, now you're coming for another master's degree, be weary that they're going to ask you, why do you need to come back again? So having a very compelling reason. I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I'm pursuing my MBA in operations now. Um, I have my transcript from my undergrad. Just think ahead. I was an excellent student. I'm pursuing my master's now. Having those reasons also would be good, especially for those return students or students that have left for medical reasons or other reasons. Having documentation and proof of why you left and why you need to return, and maybe even a support letter from the university. You cannot be too prepared.
Yeah. Any uncommon questions like that could throw off students? Like, oh, these are also prepared for these questions too.
Oh
Like these
yes.
are not.
So finance questions, I think they're common and uncommon depending on the type of question. But how are you planning on financing? What does your family do? And so visa officers are at least familiar with the culture back in their home country, but CBP officers may not be. So just being prepared, and maybe you don't need to throw out an exact number like my dad makes $20,000 a year, but being prepared and saying we have enough assets. We have 1.5 crore. Maybe you want to translate that to dollars, and we have enough assets. We have enough liquid assets, and talking about your finances in a comfortable way, and with a little bit more American terminology, could be helpful in terms of talking about how you're going to financially support yourself.
Mm. So it is possible that they could mess up in their answers and could raise a lot of red flags to be sent back.
It's possible. I don't. I think that finance answers are a little bit less common. I think the more common thing is people don't just get turned around for no reason. I think that we get scared into that. Does it happen? Do people get turned around just because they're nervous and for no reason? Sure, I'm sure that happens sometimes, but making sure that you don't, people that get turned around usually have text messages that talk about their plans for work. They're the guy who has, four huge bags and saying that they're only staying a week. Like, there are red flags. CBP will try to find something concrete. You're not just going to get sent back for a like, regardless of the fear mongering out there. This
Mm.
information is for you to help be prepared and hopefully avoid secondary. Secondary can happen to other, that is very common.
Yeah.
But the more information that you have, the more specific that you are. If you're watching and you're a B1, B2 traveler, at that point going into the country, you know exactly what you're going to do. If you're going to Yellowstone and then you're going to Seattle, being very specific about those things can help you avoid going into secondary. So the more nuances you provide the CBP officer, the more comfortable. So I would say secondary can be fairly common and kind of a scary experience and a waste of time, but getting sent out, in my opinion, would take a little bit more of a concrete reason. But again, if you're nervous and you don't have your syllabus, you can't talk about where you're going to stay, it is possible to get turned around even though you were a genuine student but maybe not prepared. So don't be caught like that.
I'm very curious. Do they book the tickets then, or do I have to pay for the tickets?
Oh, that is a good question. I believe that the airline bears the cost. I want to
Oh,
say,
okay.
uh, I want to say that the airline bears the cost of that because they have sent over an intending immigrant. I know that's the case if your visa or some sort of legal document is not valid, but I'll have to get back to you on that. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in
Okay.
some cases, for sure, the airline payer will pay for that return flight. Mhm.
Yeah. And what I want to do is I want people to watch this and comment. Maybe they have more
Mhm.
questions about this. But so we will probably do part two. But also, I want to do maybe same for H1Bs or
Oh
OPT
yeah.
people. So
Okay.
that way it can be more focused for those people. And one final question: does the brand of the university also impact how your CBP or how the interview might be? Because what if I'm not going to Purdue and I'm going to like this like university which has 99% acceptance rate and very low graduation rate? Like, does that matter at all?
It could, especially if CBP has seen some applicants or some people enter the US and being turned around before for those universities. Then certainly, if you're talking about a very high admit university or a university that has had red flags before, then certainly
Mm,
that could play a part. I don't see CBP grilling somebody going to Georgetown or Harvard or MIT. Um, but then, secondary universities, state schools, they're also fine and acceptable. So don't get worried about that. But there are some schools that are a little bit more red flag. But I would say
yeah.
your interview matters the most unless you're going to a school that's known to have some red flags with that CBP officer. Mhm.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you again. This was great. Again, for people who don't know, you help not just for F1, but also B1, B2, any visa,
It's
basically.
a class.
Yeah. So if you need help, please reach out to her. Check the link in the description. You can book a consultation. I know many of my audience have booked it and they have got a lot of value. Especially, I know some of them have reached out to me after they've gotten rejection. They contacted you and then they got an approval. So it's always good to hear. But again, Yvette, thank you so much for doing this. I can't wait to do it again. But until our next one.
Keep smiling, keep hustling.
Nice.